Dr. Partho Roy, Dr. Arindam Bandyopadhyay, Dr. Indranil Bhattacharya, my subsequent speaker, Sri Manush Dash, teachers and professors of this institute, and the newly admitted trainee batch of the PGDM. So it has indeed been my privilege. When I saw my name, I felt a little nervous as well, because I'm supposed to give the introductory lecture, or for the freshers it is you could call it a stepping stone to this coming to this institute, which is primarily meant for teaching you banking services, financial matters, and scrutiny of banking matters as well. So, I am personally indebted to the director, Dr. Partho Roy, with whom I had studied together for 12 long years, during school and thereafter. It was also a coincidence that we studied economics as the main subject. Any of you have economics as the main subject in college? How many of you could raise your hands? 1, 2, 3. So here you will be hearing a lot about economics, banking, as well as management. So we studied economics major in the college under Calcutta University Presidency College. We had a very good economics department at the time. And when we speak on such topics, naturally those memories come in. When we had our learned professors being able to convey abstruse matters in simple language. So that indeed is one of the art of teaching, one of the nuances of teaching. Even difficult matters, the teacher should convey to the students in simple terms. So, during our economics days, we had an important paper, macroeconomics. All the economics professors and doctorates would be knowing that. So there, in the undergraduate days, we had our books by Gardner Ackley, William Branson, and Schneider, all foreign authors. While microeconomics, this is the macro one, and the micro is which concerns with individuals, deals with the economic behavior of individuals. Macroeconomics deals with the policy of the nation as a whole, or it deals with a collection of individuals, their economic behavior. Specifically, I remember the book by Schneider, I hope professors will be remembering. This specifically elaborated on the money multiplier concept. Briefly stated, the actual deposit by customers in the banks is only a small fraction of the total actual amount that is circulated in the economy. The credit circulation as compared to the actual deposit in the banks is much larger. That is the concept of multiplier. It is thus that finally the volume of economic transactions much exceeds the initial deposit by customers through the credit that it generates. And that is the concept of multiplier. Why I mentioned this is in banking services, naturally you come across these concepts more and more. Another important development as compared to the days when we studied theoretical economics is the transfer of money online. has been a bonus to sellers and customers, and economic transactions have become a lot easier. It has invited newer ways of bank forgery too. In this context, I want to recall the recent bank fraud with the Gwalior branch of the Ramakrishna Mission Center. Ramakrishna Mission has centers in many parts of the country. Just as I come from a center in West Bengal, the name of it is Malda. And if you have heard this name earlier, you have heard it. Malda is known, by the way, for mangoes. I remember going to Bihar, when people didn't recognize the name of the place. When I mentioned mangoes, that was known to them. It's so popular. So I come from that place. Just as there is a center in Malda, there is a center in Gwalior as well. There are centers in many parts of the country. So that center faced recently a big problem. That is what I wanted to tell you. So there, the Swami in charge, he had many hoax calls, that is, calls which are coming from persons untraced, fake intimidation, inability to gauge the nitty-gritties of online transactions by that Swami concern, led to the monk in charge of the center being under digital arrest. These are new concepts, newer names. Over a period of 26 days, when, to quote the NDTV News, I'm quoting the print version, he was virtually held hostage through video calls and coerced into transferring rupees 2.52 crore to multiple bank accounts. So intimidation, and somehow the Swami didn't consult our headquarters. He recklessly transferred this money. So what I want to tell you is, so these are newer things that you must learn along with your banking services, internet banking, that we didn't have to learn in our college days. While all economic activity, whether in agriculture, industry, business, selling over the counter, etc., require currency or credit money, banking transaction has got to deal with money directly. In other words, other economic variables, as for example, evaluation of national income, is done in terms of rupees or dollars as units of measurement. In banking services, money, or whether in rupee or dollar, is the main item of service. So a doctor gives service, medical service, and he takes some money. Or teacher teaches and takes some salary. But in the bank, money is the main item of service that distinguishes it from other services. It is thus important that value education, I'm supposed to speak on that, is considered as a core item in the specific service. In economics, a student is taught that belief in others is an important item in any economic transaction. It is this item which can make economic transactions smoother. Belief presumes honesty of individuals. Hence, integrity of individuals is essential for long-term economic prosperity. I'll give you an example. It is from the economic history of Great Britain. In our days, we had to study the economic history of Great Britain. Is it now in the syllabus still? I don't think so. Nowadays, gradually, these have been obliterated now. In those days, that's it. Thus, we learned about the popularity of a sect at that time, during the Industrial Revolution. That sect was known as Calvinism. It has as its head John Calvin, a Christian sant, right? And his followers, in course of time, many of them became industrialists. Why I want to mention is, these believers insisted on austerity and stressed on savings for the future. This value teaching by this Calvinism taught them that don't be luxurious in spending money. Instead, save for the future. One view of economic history of the period nominates this as a factor in accumulation by the industrialists of the period. More savings led to more investment in the country, that is in Britain, and to capital formation. Because the industrial revolution required a huge amount of capital. Hello? Yeah. And this capital formation was possible because these persons, inspired by these values of that particular sect, didn't spend the total money that they somehow acquired. They kept it for long-term investment. That is how savings and investment happen. That is one view of history, I tell you. So here, values have come into the picture, right? It is interesting that in the post-independence period in India, under the epithet of secularity, specific value education is no longer a part of the educational curriculum at any stage. We are thus offered objective, within quote, objective education in institutions, at schools, colleges and universities. While this certainly is welcome, objective education in physics, chemistry, mathematics, biology or science education is certainly important. But objective education in social sciences can sometimes be misleading. Even in social science, to be precise in economics, because I know something about this field, textbooks have in many cases been written by foreign authors who base their chapters on experiences of their respective countries. Hence, we studied microeconomics. There's a very popular textbook by Ferguson and Gould, right? Ferguson and Gould. Or in mathematical economics, a subject which I taught for a number of years, in later years also, there was a McGraw-Hill publication by A.C. Chiang, right? Or in British economic history by Phyllis Dean. Wonderful writing, but only that, probably these didn't apply much to our country. Or, to be more precise, to be exact, the theoretical premise is very, very good. But the microeconomics textbooks or the macroeconomic textbooks, they drew upon examples of, say, America or England, even a microeconomics textbook. So what I wanted to suggest, what I thought was, why can't we have textbooks on economics or management that suits our country, our discipline, our culture? Although Indian economics, development and planning were there as special papers, they were often interpreted by tools developed from theoretical micro, macro and other papers. There is thus a distinct need to develop economic models based directly on the Indian experience. To find the economic roots of the country, people need to go to the fields, the factories and the markets. That is, models cannot be armchair models. Okay? I have a wonderful conference room and I propound a model from there, working on the computer, that won't do. You have to go to the factory, to the workplace. As you gather the information from those places, your model can be realistic, can apply to our country. That is my point here. While the tools developed, they are welcome for social science, the indigenous tweaking of the foreign model is thus essential. An example of such individual tweaking for a beneficial cause is the Harrod-Norman model of growth. Anyone studying economics must hear this thing. Very famous model, right? Modified as the Felsman model in Soviet Russia, this model was used in the second 5-year plan. All of you have heard about the 5-year plan. Prashanta Chandra Mahalanovish, the doyen of statistics in India, gave practical shape to this Harrow-Dommer model developed abroad, leading to the growth of heavy industries in India during 1956-1961. That is the second 5-year plan. There is often the perspective that values education is an appendage that the country can well do without. I remember in my childhood days, I had studied in a school, the St. Mary's School in Guwahati. And there was another one, Don Bosco School. Both of them had moral science as one of the subjects. Even in the Ramakrishna Mission schools and colleges, there are many of them in the country. In fact, coincidentally, Dr. Parthurai and me, both of us had studied in Ramakrishna Mission schools. There is always a subject, term Indian culture or value education, that is compulsory taught in the institutions. When we were taught these subjects, we often thought that it was an additional burden for us, right? But what happened was, because we had to appear for examinations, we came to know the basics of Indian culture, our heritage, our lineage. So that is how we got introduced into Indian culture all the more. You can say, but well, isn't it okay that our parents only teach us values, or we go to a Ganesh Mandir, or we go to the Maharashtra has a number of saints. It has Ganeshwar, Tukaram, Namdev, Gajanan Maharaj, many sons of them. But the problem is, such education, value education, often becomes the responsibility of the guardians of students or elder ones. So our education institutions often are bereft, or I would say lesser amount of value education. Without introduction in some form in the course, they often become as extra ones, appendages, as I said. So I would just ask you, introduce you in a Ramakrishna Mission university, our university, when the students assemble together while departing, they chant a mantra, right? So this mantra, just to give you a summary, what it says is, the students have completed their 2 years, 3 years in the Gurukula, and they are leaving the institution. They are going back to the society. So when they go back there, what are the values that they should carry? So this is the mantra, and this part that I'm reciting or reading, all assemble and read together in the Samavartana program. Samavartana is a convocation. Here also we have convocation a few days earlier, right? So I would request you to repeat with me. I'll read the first part, and then when I tell you, this will be the easier part that I tell you. And many of them you must have heard some of it. Then you start repeating it to me. I start with the first part. You need not repeat this one. Vedamanuchyacharyo ante vasena manushasti. Meaning is, after completing teaching of the subject matter, in this case Veda, ante vasenam, to the student, anushasti, anushasana. The teacher is telling you, you have completed your teaching, studies, right? You are going back. So remember this. What should you remember? Now you have to repeat with me. Satyam vada. Yes, loudly. Satyam vada. Dharmanchara. Dharmanchara. Swadhyayan ma pramadaha. Yes. Swadhyayan ma pramadaha. I'll break up because this particular intonation. Acharyaya priyam dhanamaritya. Yes. Acharyaya priyam dhanamaritya. loudly. Next part. Satyana pramaditavyam, Satyana pramaditavyam, Dharmana pramaditavyam, Dharmana pramaditavyam, Kushalana pramaditavyam, Kushalana pramaditavyam, Bhutyaina pramaditavyam, Bhutyaina pramaditavyam, Swadhyaya pravachanabhyana. Yes. Swadhyaya pravachanabhyana pramaditavyam, pramaditavyam. There should be a certain modulation to it, right? Deva pitrikaryabhyana pramaditavyam, Deva pitrikaryabhyana pramaditavyam, Matridevo bhava, Matridevo bhava, Pitridevo bhava, Pitridevo bhava, Acharya devo bhava, Acharya devo bhava, Atithi devo bhava, Atithi devo bhava. There's a larger part to it. I'll stop here. Let's get into the meanings, right? Since we are speaking about values, a running translation. Satyam vada. Speak the truth. For that is the basis of society, it says. Dharmancha. Dharma here means kartavya, duty. Whatever kartavya is allotted to you, you do that properly. Swadhyaya ma pramada. Ma here means not. Pramada is forgetting. You should not ever stop studying for yourself. Swadhyaya. Swa is one. Adhyayana. What happens is, suppose you complete 2 years of course here, suppose you get a placement somewhere, often after people join a service, they tend to overlook or forget what they have studied earlier. Say what we had studied in our schools in geography or in, say, life science, unless I do a teaching myself, I probably would forget it quickly. So what it says is Swadhyaya and Pravachana. Pravachana means, anyone? Pravachana? Speaking, teaching, right? So unless you teach, in addition to Swadhyaya, this knowledge cannot go deeper within you. It would quickly, in Bengali there is a proverb, it says, it will enter through one ear and will depart from the other one. Unless you have a charcha, pravachana, those knowledge cannot go deeper, it says. Then it says, you see, the teacher has taught you, and there has been a tantu, a lineage. If you teach others, this tantu will go on extending. Enriching of the knowledge will happen. So you must not cut this tantu. You go on passing the knowledge to others. You have heard this, what is it? The Vedas were known as Suti. Because in those days, writing had not become prevalent. So Sravana was important. By hearing, people learned. Right? Nowadays also you see, you read less of books. You go more into the mobiles and internets, right? So here also you will see, in many of the news portals, there are provisions for hearing. You hear the news. You need not take all the pains of reading them. So Shavana, Manana, Nididhyasana. What you hear, think about it deeply. And after thinking, if you really consider it to be useful, go deeply into it. Nididhyasana, from Dhyana, Nididhyasana. The next part of it I'll run over. It says, you see, never forget your parents. Matri Devo Bhava. Consider your mother to be your deity, your father to be your deity, and your Acharya who has given you a new life. He also is like a parent. So consider him to be such. Never forget your gratitude towards him or her. Schools, colleges, universities. When we grow bigger, sometimes we tend to overlook what we had acquired earlier. It says, don't do that. Be indebted to them. They had sowed the seeds of knowledge in your hearts. And this one, you must have heard earlier, Atithi Devo Bhava. Atithi Devo Bhava. It says that the guests coming here, even at your own cost, sometimes you ought to serve them. So these are some of the principal values that we come across in our Indian teachings. This is what I read was from the Taittiriya Upanishad. You have heard the name of Upanishads? Yes? Upanishads are a part of the Vedas. There are a number of Upanishads. Actually, Upanishads are like long poems actually. Some of them are so small as to have only 12 verses. But some are much larger. What I just read out to you and you recited with me was a part of Taittiriya Upanishad. So this Taittiriya Upanishad has another concept that is very useful for us. Personality development. Often when a boy or a girl comes out from school or college, he is worried about his own personality, right? What makes a personality? Is it a good uniform? Is it a good look? Or is it good speaking? So we often remain a confused lot. What does personality stand for? So here in this Upanishad it says, you see, a personality has 5 layers. Just as in an onion, you can peel the layers one by one, isn't it? In onions. Similarly, for us it says there are a number of layers. First one is the physical layer. It's called the Annamaya Kosha, physical layer. That is what we are able to see for ourselves. Look at our others. That is how our Aadhaar card is done. Right? The next one is Pranamaya Kosha. Prana here means not life. Prana here means the breath. You have heard about pranayama? So in pranayama, prana doesn't stand for life, it stands for breath. Yama means controlling. Prana is breath. So controlling the breath is pranayama. So the next kosha or layer is the pranamaya kosha. First one was annamaya kosha, the physical sheath layer. The next one is this breathing or the pranamaya kosha. Third one is manomaya kosha. Manomaya is the mind, right? Any of you have seen your mind? None of us have done that, right? But the mind is very important. Why? Because in the mind we often cast the seeds of the later physical works. So after this lecture, probably you will go for your lunch, right? So towards the end of the lecture, those thoughts will gradually come up in your minds. When would the lecture end? It's getting too late for the lunch now. So those are the thoughts that would start creeping in. That won't be translated immediately into physical actions, but those seeds often prepare you for the physical actions later on. So sometimes the various thoughts, they come together. They rush together. Normally we pick up one out of that, right? So the faculty of the mana mind, which does a discrimination, it takes a number of options and says, okay, I can't go and sleep in my room now after the next lunch. I'm feeling tired. Should I take a little rest? I do some options in my mind and say, no, I can't do that. Because there's another lecture. Dr. Indranil Bhattacharya is there. There's another lecture. I can't sleep now. So you finally decide on it. This faculty of the mind is known as buddhi, intellect. So we have completed the sheets of physical one, annamaya, manomaya, pranamaya. The next one is vijnanamaya. Vijnanamaya is, it says, you see for yourself. you start reading the book, you feel, I could have started reading history early. So nice, so wonderful things are there. Under the pressure of exams, the same words, the same subject matter, as your mind has delved deeper, it has found newer meanings. Newer meanings. Earlier it was boring because you didn't think for yourself. You have taken the words of the teacher only. When you decided to discover the real meanings behind that, you find nuggets of gold. So this part is known as the Vijnanamaya portion. Jnana is knowledge. V is Vishesh Rupena. Especially, the same jnana, when you apply your mind into it, then these inner hidden gold material come out. Earlier it did. And the final one is Anandamaya portion. Anandamaya portion says that within all of us is a blissful self. This blissful self, it says, Upanishad says, is often covered by Maya, dust. When there is a heavy rain, yesterday it was all sluggish. You couldn't walk properly, right? So on the mirror there is a huge amount of sand. You can't see your own image even. But if you can wipe the mirror properly, you will see. Your image is so bright, you feel joyous. The Upanishad says, this doctor of the Upanishad says, you see, the same entity is there within all of us. The same Brahman or Atman, whatever you would call it. But probably it is covered up by that dust, sand. So in that mirror, that Daivi Sampat, the divine self, is not being reflected. So often we think ourselves to be limited. If you ask anyone to come up on the stage and say a few words, he says, Swamiji, you tell me suddenly how can I speak like this? I need a little preparation. So often we think that we are limited, confined. I don't have the strength. So how can this sense of limitation go away? It says, when through proper work, this outer sheath of limitedness goes away, ajnana. In Sanskrit there is another word, adhyasa. Adhyasa is a covering, a net. Because of this, you feel that you are limited. You are unable to do great things. So Swami Vivekananda had gone to the Chicago Parliament of Religions in 1893. So there, those famous lectures he had uttered in Chicago, there were a number of lectures. I only quote from one of them. So here, this small story that he says. This is from one of the lectures he delivered in India, not in Chicago. Be strong, my young friends. That is my advice to you. You will be nearer to heaven through football than through the study of the Gita. Drastic words, right? These are bold words, but I have to say them, for I love you. Swami Vivekananda's quotations. I know where the shoe pinches. I have gained a little experience. You will understand the Gita better with your biceps, your muscles, a little stronger. You will understand the mighty genius and mighty strength of Krishna better with a little of strong blood in you. You will understand the Upanishads better and the glory of Atman when your body stands firm upon your feet and you feel yourselves as men. So this is the doctrine of the Upanishads that in recent years, Swami Vivekananda and some of the modern Indian reformers had enunciated, right? So often it so happened that these messages had remained covered in these Upanishads, Gita, and other Sanskrit books. People were afraid of the language. By the way, Pune is a great center of Sanskrit learning, I tell you. It's a great set of Sanskrit learning. So, when you uncover these meanings, this is what these people said. Just read through the line once again. He is a sannyasi. Yet he is saying, you will be nearer to heaven through football than through the study of the Gita. He says, unless you are physically prepared, if you are able to resist the pressure of circumstances, how can you understand Gita, Upanishads, etc.? For a little bit of headache, people will say, I can't attend the class, right? If you have some stomach trouble, they will say, I will take leave for 3 days. So he says, you have to have a good physique first. For that, you had the 5 sheets, remember? First sheet was physical self. Unless the physical self is strong, able, you need not be a King Kong or Darasi, but at least you should be physically well prepared to have the brunt of teaching. You'll have a number of classes here, isn't it? So even to have concentration in the classes, you must have a good physique. You cannot run to the medical center often. That will be weak, damn weak. When you take medicines again and again, I've seen some students, I've worked in education institutions for a number of years, they take medicines like normal stuff, like biscuits, they take medicines. So this is a bad habit. Unless you think that you are strong, take care of your own body, then this weakening influence, depending on medicines and doctors, can influence your studies as well. I tell you, we have seen it. So he says you will understand the Gita better with your biceps, your muscles, and it is stronger. So he mentions about Krishna. I thought that this is worth mentioning a little more in details about the Bhagavad Gita. There is a very reputed psychiatrist in Calcutta. His name is Uday Chaudhary. I remember I was in Malda at the time. I had consulted him earlier, number of times earlier. He rang me up and said, you see, Swamiji, I have a talk to give. Will you give me a little outline of the Bhagavad Gita and Krishna, the dilemmas? I said, why are you interested in philosophy? He said, you see, this dilemma that a warrior has in the battlefield, this applies to all of us in everyday walk in life, right? So just get into the storyline. You know the story and you get it. So still it's worth repeating. The Kshatriya clan, the warrior clan in India, had all assembled in Kurukshetra. Kurukshetra, which state is it? Haryana, right? Some of us, at least one is from Haryana. I met him yesterday. I think Mridul is there here? Mridul? Yes, at least some of them are from Haryana. So they had all assembled in Kurukshetra. So Kshatriyas are divided into Pandavas and the Kauravas. Actually, they were close cousins also. But it so happened that the Kshatriyas, through deceit, Dyuta Krida, the game of chess, dice, they had banished their Pandava brothers. How many years? Anyone? How many years? Yes, louder? 13. Slightly louder, couldn't hear you. Right. That's the correct answer. 12 years Vanavasa and 1 year Ajnatavasa. There were stringent conditions. If within that 1 year of Ajnatavasa you are recognized, what would happen? You have to run through the whole cycle once again. It's a very difficult condition. So they have completed that condition. They have returned. Pandavas have returned. And then they came up to the Kauravas and said, well, now you should give back our kingdom. The Kauravas said, no, nothing. Duryodhana said, nothing, we won't. Pandavas, ever the just, ever the good persons, honest persons, they say, okay, give us only 5 villages. We will be content with that. 5 brothers, 5 villages. We'll be happy with this. Uchagro Vedini. Without a battle, Duryodhana says, Vina Juddhe, Nahi Vivo, I will not give up. Even the amount of mud that comes at the end of a needle. So he is not willing to part with the kingdom at all. As a last attempt, they sent Krishna, because Krishna was very mature actually, right? And he was somewhat neutral, either to the Pandavas or to the Kauravas. So Krishna was sent as an emissary, as a duta. But Duryodhana, violating all norms, tried to imprison Krishna in the port itself. He couldn't. But then it was clear that the war was imminent, it was coming. So both the Kauravas and Pandavas, they sent their emissaries to all the Kshatriya kings. Some of them, they opted for the Pandavas, and some for the Kshatriyas. So it was all prepared. In the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, there is a description of the battlefield. Just the battle is about to start. You can compare, before big examination, the warning bell has been struck, right? Similarly, the conch shells have been blown. Battle is about to start. Arjuna, the most famous of the Pandava warriors, he has Krishna as his charioteer. He tells Krishna, please take the chariot between the two armies. Why? Because he wants to have a final look at the Kshatriyas. Because many of them probably will die. You can compare with this with the looking at the examination question paper, right? When you look at the examination question paper, suddenly you feel nervous. You find butterflies in the stomach, right? You feel like you cannot write anything. Hasn't it happened to any of you? Has it happened? All of us, it must happen. Without it, there won't be exams actually. Examinations are meant to have butterflies in the stomach. Only then will you study hard. Similarly, Arjuna, when he saw the huge assembly of Kshatriyas on both sides, he started worrying. Are we doing the right thing? We'll be killing our own relatives for the kingdom. What will posterity say? They will say that killing their own relatives, they took back their kingdom. Vile thing to do. Very bad. And Krishna, after all, why are you provoking me to do this? Krishna, ever mature, he stays silent. Doesn't say anything. Just like a patient coming up to the doctor and opening himself up, he allows Arjuna to go on rambling. His own mental dilemmas, he will go on speaking. Finally, he tells Krishna, Karpanya doshopahata svabhava vricchami tvam dharma sanmuna cheta. It says, Karpanya, kripanata, smallness, dosha, blemish, upahata svabhava. My natural habit, nature, is being obstructed. Upahata svabhava. Vricchami tvam. I'm asking you, dharma sanmudha cheta. About dharma, beauty. I'm confused. Sanmudha. My mind is confused. So I'm asking you, shishya teham. I'm now your disciple. Shadima. You give me the proper shasana. Shadima. I'm your prapanna. That is, I have taken refuge in you. You see, unless a patient has fully surrendered to the doctor, he cannot give the medicines properly. What happens? The doctor gives the medicine, the patient comes out and starts consulting the Google, right? Is it the proper medicine to take? So he won't have faith in the doctor, isn't it? It happens with all of us. So unless you have Shraddha, unless you are surrendering, then the proper teaching cannot work. Then Krishna started advising. I won't go to that advice. The main part is, just look at it. Here is a leader among men, Arjuna, who is baffled about his works to be done. He has to fight his own relatives. Apparently speaking, Arjuna's logic was good. Apparently speaking, why should you fight your relatives. In English there is a proverb, it says, don't wash your dirty linens in public. So it means why should you bring up your own quarrels, within your family, into the society at large? All this good logic is there. But Krishna was intelligent enough to see through the mind of Arjuna. What Arjuna is doing is, he himself is confused. Is it the first time that such dilemmas have come in? No. They have tried again and again to bring peace. So finally, after much cogitation, they have taken a step, right? So it can be sometimes cruel. Sometimes it can be life-threatening as well. There are many administrators here, right? I too have been an administrator for some part of my monastic life. Any administrator sometimes has to take hard decisions. Some decision that is for the bigger welfare of the institution as a whole. Similarly, for the Kshatriya, sometimes you have got to take harsh decisions. The Kshatriya is meant to paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha, then dushkritam, right? Paritrana sadhuna means for the honest people, sadhuna, to save them, and for the destruction of wickedness, the Kshatriya should be there. So Arjuna has suddenly forgotten his duty. He's baffled. So here, Vivekananda says, you see, can we be more busy than Arjuna? He's in the midst of battlefield. Yet he has time to take lessons on values, about what is to be done. Then he explains, he says, you see, all of us we are doing works. But the works we do is often, in English proverb says, flotsam and jetsam. On the river you will see many small wood pieces floating along in the current. They don't have any directions. Just as the current is going, the wood pieces will be going in that direction. Similarly is our fate. Just as the society is taking us, we are being drifted in that part. We don't have an independent thinking. To have that, you must have the courage to do what you think is right. Even for that, you must take unpleasant and strong decisions. So Krishna tells Arjuna again and again, you must fight. You see, apparently, Krishna, whom we revere as a great religious person, he is advising Arjuna to fight, isn't it? A religious person is supposed to bring in peace, but he is not doing that. He is saying you must be able to fight this battlefield. In the larger view, in our lives, all of us at different points of time have to take decisions. In management, decision making is a big part of it. Right? Even in economics, I remember, we had to read about such chapters. First mover's advantage. One who moves first, one who is courageous enough to take the bold step first, he only prospers. I remember there is a book by Elon Musk. Probably he isn't 50 probably now. Elon Musk's biography. At this age, he is basically from South Africa actually. And yet he has taken so bold steps that even the President of the United States, he is on such terms, he has the courage to fight with it. So imagine a person coming from another country, settling in the US, taking such bold steps. So many new industries he has started, right? You can even name some of them. Tesla, SpaceX. So one man. So often he has borrowed money from the market and started his industry. So these are the first movers. Strong enough to take decisions on their own. They can sometimes falter. Yes, you can't have success always. But one who has strength, willpower, courage, especially has the courage of truth, he will succeed. That is what the Indian philosophy also is telling us, right? So I leave some time for questions. have some interactions. So, in this last part of it, I will deal a little concentration, meditation, right? In the yoga, or specifically Raja Yoga, meditation or concentration of the mind is suggested more in the morning and evening hours. It says, just imagine when the night is passing into day, daybreak in English. In Sanskrit, pratyusha, nature is calm and quiet. So at that time, internal nature can also be easily quieted. Similarly, from day, we are moving towards night, Sayantala, dusk in English. At that time also, the Prakriti is quieted. Birds are returning to the nest, right? Office goers are going back to the houses. You see, at that time, even when you go through the highway, you feel a certain calmness now. The sun is setting. So it says, in those hours, with even a little bit of effort, you can concentrate your mind more easily. So this Yoga Shastra, Raja Yoga to be specific, mentions one or two steps. I'll just mention one or two for you. It says, when you sit for your studies, right, you try to put your mind in your book. You're looking at the book, the mind is drifting elsewhere. Okay. Probably you had sports earlier, playing tennis or badminton. You look at the book, what you think about how you should have served in the tennis court, right? Or if you had had a quarrel with someone in the dining hall, your mind is continuously thinking about it. Next time you get a chance, you give such a reply to him. I didn't get a chance this time, right? You look at the book, but actually you're not studying. You look up at the clock and say, oh, half an hour gone. I haven't read a single page. Then you gradually, you pull back your mind. In Sanskrit, this is pratyaha, pulling back your thoughts this way and concentrating on the subject matter in hand. We actually do this when you try to concentrate. But when you do this consciously, then it is easier to discipline the mind. Pratyaha. The next step is dharana. Dharana is first fixing. First fixing is, suppose you are reading a chapter on mathematics. Suppose slightly difficult chapter, permutation, combination. So as you first read the words, you won't be able to take a full meaning of the page. You will see for yourself. You have read the words, but the full meaning hasn't been there. This is dharana. Dharana is first fixing. Dhyana is, next is dhyana. Reading it again and again, the mind actually delves beyond the printed words. The printed words are like small keys. You're opening up the treasures that are hidden within. Beyond the printed words, the writer of the book has tried to teach the subject matter. Probably the writer has long gone away. But the words are there, the keys are there. As you concentrate on the keys, then the treasure of knowledge comes out. Jnana. And the next step is samadhi. Samadhi is full concentration. It can so happen. It must have happened to all of you. You read it so deeply, start loving it, you become unconscious of the time. It will happen before the examination, you'll see. Earlier you didn't read it well. Under pressure you study more. As you go deeper and deeper, you take a result. अगले बार अच्छी तरह से पढ़ूंगा फिर. इस बार अच्छी तरह से पढ़े नहीं फिर, and I wasted a lot of time. अगले बार के लिए you take another संकल्प हो yourself. But then you conveniently forget it for the exams again. अगले बार when the exams come again, then you lament again. इस बार तो ऐसे ही हाल होगा. Okay. So disciplining of the mind means, as you again and again, one part of the mind sees the other workings of the other parts, then you see the nuances. You must have seen big machines, isn't it? In big machines, there are smaller wheels also, isn't it? So the smaller wheels translate the motion into the bigger wheel. Smaller wheels, they start rotating first and then the bigger wheel. Similarly, for us also, there are smaller indicators. When the smaller indicators are coming, be careful, be careful. There's a very accomplished sannyasin of ours, Swami Adbhutananda, came from a very rustic background, right? So he had come from a family of shepherds. So since they came from a very poor family, in their mahalla, drinking was a pastime. Later on, he was attracted to Sri Ramakrishna and he left Kolkata. Even then, he would say, I would not go through such street corners where people are indulging in gambling or drinking liquor. So people would say, why, Swami? You are now already into the spiritual path now. He would say, no. Small indicators, impressions that had been in the mind can sometimes wake my current thoughts also. All of us, we have such indicators. We often ignore them. Often we become complacent. We think, kuch nahi hoga mere liye. Oh, ho jayega mere liye. Aisa hoga nahi. You fall into the trap, then you start wasting your time. Sometimes you carry yourself. So these are the ways, as you do a little bit of concentration in the morning and evening, you will see you are having discipline of the mind. So I tell you, do one exercise for you, okay? I tell Om, you repeat with me and sit quietly for 1 minute. And then I leave it open for questions. Often for questions, the first question comes later on. And then there are a bundle of questions coming in. So the first movers advantage, you will get when you put the question, right? I do Om and you repeat with me. Om. Yes, loudly. Om. Sit with your spine erect. With the spine, the shoulder and the head in one line. And your eyes must not be totally closed. If it's totally closed, you can start drowsing after a time. It should be half closed. It says it should be concentrated on the tip of your nose. And you think about some pleasant things. And if you are a believer in God or Allah or Ishvara, think about the form. It will tranquilize your mind. We'll end with Om again, right? We will again end with Om. I will say first, then you will say loudly, right? Om is a universal symbol. Om. Yes, together. Om. I now leave the platform for questions. And I think some portable mic can be there or else mic.